Hello, this is Module 12, and this is about tort law. So the first thing that I'm going to kind of talk about is what tort liability is. So there's different violations that come with tort liability that can include damage, harm, or injury that can be to a person or a person's belongings. This can happen. Sometimes it's an intentional reason. Sometimes it's just it's negligence. It can be a breach of duty. Sometimes just carelessness. After some of the research and the different cases that I found, a lot of them did deal with negligence, but sometimes it was more of just wrong place, wrong time, a lot of the times for the teachers in the districts. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Prejean in the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. So in this one, a student was injured during an after-school basketball practice. It was an outdoor, I think it was a concrete court, and there were various ages, I think from like third through fifth grade, so that 8 to 11 age range. And the coach was out there and he was having the students work on, excuse me, students were working on hands-on techniques. They were trying to learn plays while having an engaging atmosphere. And one of the students fell on another student and broke their leg. The school board was then held liable for the student's injury because of it was the outside practice. Even though the coach or facilitator was there, the school board was still held liable for this one. Versus now the Taylor versus Oakland Scavenger. This one kind of deals with another like activity. A lot of these I found were sports related or PE, sometimes even like elective classes where you're more up and around moving. So in this one, this is a student in PE class. This was a high school setting. From the sounds of it, the high school had different outdoor activities that they were working on. So students were asked to exit the building and walk to their next destination. So I think with this one, it was across the street. So this high school PE class, there was this girl and she was walking across the street to the next location for class, and a garbage truck drove by and struck the student, and her leg, I believe, had a little bit of damage. So that's another case kind of where the school was held liable. And I believe the garbage truck company was as well. In this Kaiser versus Snyder, this is where, so this is more now we are inside the school. I believe this was a technical school, so like a 2-year institution after high school. So the student lost is like severed fingertips while operating machinery in a lab. This claim was that the professor wasn't clear on directions. However, the school and professor was favored in this case. I think they found enough evidence to prove that it was the student's fault. The teacher was there and present. Other students were able to follow directions. So in this specific case, I was surprised to see that the professor in school was favored because I think most of the time there's enough evidence that can be claimed that the school was at fault. In this Brigham Young University versus Lily White, this is a chemistry class now. So like I said, some of them were more physical activity, and then now it's also lab. You don't see it as much so in like a lecture setting. So this one, a student was injured during a chemistry experiment. While mixing chemicals, there was an improper mixture. One was put in before the other, I believe. The instructor claimed that he gave instructions to the entire class about you can get prepared for the experiment, but we're not yet going to start. And then the professor was out of the room. So negligence on the professor and university because of the wrongdoing. There was enough evidence to prove that the student was in favor. So with this specific case, it made me think like you really have to be careful with, you have an entire audience, like it could be an entire class against you. So the professor being out of the room, I think, played a big part in this. My last court case that I'm going to talk about is the Rollins versus Concordia Parish School Board. This is, we're kind of working our way back to being on the playground. There is a 9-year-old student, a little boy, and he was playing on a merry-go-round. There was around 40 students, so I would imagine like 2 or 3 different classes on the school playground. And a substitute was the one that was in charge of supervising the entire playground. So the boy, Rollins, he fell off. There was an incident with the merry-go-round. where he injured himself. So then, with the school and the substitute, the Rollins, the family, claimed that there was not proper supervision on the playground, whether the ratio was out of whack, where they needed more adults out there per students. Whatever the case ended up to be, the student was found halfway involved in the accident. A lot of the times, I know, like from my own personal experience, students understand the proper protocol on the playground. So even with a substitute, I think the student was found at fault because it wasn't their first time out there. They knew how to use the equipment. It was improper use, which caused for the accident. So it was shared 50-50. In this last slide, the professional ethics that we kind of talked about with this whole module, it just makes you think about making sure all bases are covered, and communication is key in all aspects of education. So the staff and members of the school should be provided multiple times throughout the year clear and explicit school policies and guidelines. Sometimes it can kind of seem like you're drilling it into people, but it's better safe than sorry. Anytime that there's going to be a school function, I know that my building principal lays out the guidelines. Sometimes it almost seems like a dictatorship where this is what you'll do, here is what we're going to do, but you find that it's much easier to have those explicit policies laid out. So if accidents do happen, you have your bases covered. The mission statement of the entire district, and then specifically the schools, need to include ethical and moral reasoning for why we're doing things and the importance of doing things correctly all the time. Just like the chemistry experiment, like the professor should not be leaving the classroom with dangerous, harmful chemicals and a class full of students. There's just certain things that you just need to be doing the right thing and thinking about what is ethically, what should I be doing? The last part, the staff within the district need to understand the expectations that are being set, especially the consequences. Even though the professor thought he could handle it, stepping out of the classroom, if that didn't in fact happen, you still need to understand that the school needs you to be present in the classroom. You shouldn't be leaving students with chemicals like that. And they need to know the consequences, because I think if staff was able to understand, if I step out of the room right now and something happens, the school and myself could be held liable for something very extreme. So is it worth it? Is there an alternative to this right now? I think it's just setting those expectations and understanding the consequences. So that is all for this assignment. Thank you for watching.